In the dark expanse of space, humanity had always sought to expand its reach, believing itself to be the master of the stars. But what if, in that pursuit, they stumbled upon a force far older, far more ancient, and far more terrifying than they could ever comprehend? What if their most innocent, human children became the prize of a race whose existence predates even the birth of humanity? Not to be fine. You captured human kids? Congratulations, you just signed your death warrant. The truth of that encounter unfolds, revealing the haunting consequences of humanity's recklessness in the face of an unknown, all-powerful adversary. In the depths of space, humanity had always been aware of the countless civilizations scattered across the stars. Most of these civilizations were distant, beyond reach, or perhaps too ancient to matter. But what if one of these alien species, one that had long remained hidden from human eyes, decided to make contact? A signal had been intercepted, distorted and fragmented, but unmistakably originating from somewhere beyond the known boundaries of human exploration. Something was reaching out from the void, and it wasn't friendly. At first, the signals seemed like static, a pattern lost in the cosmic noise. Scientists combed through them, decoding their meaning, trying to understand the intent. But no clear message emerged. Only fragments, only chaos. The fragments hinted at something primal, something ancient and alien, but there was no context, no clarity. The few keywords that remained in human understanding painted a picture of something monstrous, something that defied comprehension. The planets trembled beneath humanity's gaze. The Council had gathered to decide. The alien species was labeled unknown, its motives unclear, its capabilities mysterious. And then the report arrived, a transmission from a distant moon colony. Human scouts had intercepted distress signals from a remote outpost deep within the outer systems. A species they had never encountered before had descended upon them. The worst part? They had taken children. You would think the phrase, "aliens have taken human children," would be a pretty straightforward call for immediate action, right? But when it comes to the Council, things tend to spiral into debate faster than you can say, well, that's suspicious. Was this a rescue mission? Was it a trap? Was it a vacation destination they had just gotten lost in? The Council couldn't decide. One scientist, clearly someone who had seen too many bad sci-fi films, argued that this was a cultural exchange. You know, like when you trade a bunch of goats for a fancy set of space trinkets. Another suggested they send a delegation to reason with the alien species, as if logic could sway beings who've been floating around in the void longer than humanity has existed. The commander, clearly the only sane one in the room, cut through the nonsense and declared, "They've taken children. What do we not understand about this?" Still, the Council couldn't ignore the mounting fear. The transmission from the moon colony was desperate, the voices crackling with panic and pleading. No one knew what the aliens were doing with the children, but there was no doubt it wasn't anything good. Some began whispering of sacrifice, others of experiments, and a few even joked about turning to social media for updates on missing kids. Humanity's greatest minds were truly living up to their reputations. The fleet was hastily assembled, a ragtag group of ships cobbled together from whatever was available. Star cruisers, mining vessels, even a few military-grade vessels designed to defend colonies that barely existed. Their mission wasn't grand exploration. It was simple: rescue the children or die trying. But as they set course toward the outer systems, the chilling realization struck. They weren't just racing to save lives. They were racing into the unknown. They didn't know who they were dealing with. A new alien species? Fine. But these captors were different. They didn't seem interested in diplomacy or trade. They didn't even bother with subtlety. They took children, vanished without a trace, and didn't leave behind so much as a ransom note. The fleet pressed on, fueled by desperation, haunted by the faces of the missing. But as they pushed deeper into space, the warnings from the mission logs became clearer. These captors weren't interested in negotiation or contact. They had already made their demands. Humanity's children had been taken, not to bargain or reason with, but to be erased from existence. What could such beings want with human children? No one knew. But whatever their intentions, they had already proven they didn't play by human rules. They weren't seeking peace. They weren't seeking allies. They were predators, lurking in the void, waiting for the next fool to stumble into their trap. And humanity had just walked right in. There was no turning back. The Council had signed their death warrant the moment they let the aliens take the children. No amount of diplomacy, no number of ships, would ever change the fact that those children were gone. Forever. Humanity had just entered a game they didn't understand, one where they didn't have the pieces to win. And now, the cost of their curiosity and their arrogance was about to be paid in full. The news struck like lightning. Across Earth and its colonies, panic spread. The human community had always been fragile in the face of the unknown. The idea of something capturing their children felt like a betrayal of their most fundamental safety. The Council's deliberation was swift. They would mount a rescue mission. But deep down, many feared the reality wasn't that simple. What if these beings weren't interested in rescue? What if their intentions went far beyond the realm of human understanding? A fleet was assembled, fueled by desperation and the will to reclaim what had been taken. They navigated through the far reaches of space, tracing the last known coordinates of the missing outpost. The search wasn't just for the children. It was a mission to uncover the truth behind the alien captors. Was this some form of communication, or had they come to harvest what humans could never hope to reclaim? The journey was perilous. Outposts had fallen into silence one by one, their lights extinguished by forces beyond human reckoning. The crew could feel it, an oppressive weight in the void, like something ancient watching, something that had existed long before humanity. The alien species had made a statement, and now they were following through on it. There was no diplomacy here, only survival, and the cold, hard reality of what they might face. They encountered what could only be described as glitches in space, phenomena that didn't adhere to the laws of physics as humanity understood them. Gravity would shift at random, ships would lose power for no apparent reason, and even the stars seemed to blink out in strange, unpredictable patterns. Some of the crew began to whisper, theorizing the aliens had harnessed forces humans couldn't comprehend, perhaps controlling time itself, or bending the fabric of reality. Others joked nervously that they'd been cursed by some cosmic Wi-Fi signal. Signal lost. Human race. Food and water supplies dwindled, but that was the least of their worries. The real terror was the silence. Everywhere they went, they found abandoned outposts, lifeless settlements once thriving with human life, now silent graves. The echoes of those lost colonies haunted their every step, and the children they sought, gone without a trace. It was as if the aliens had plucked them from existence, vanishing them from the very fabric of reality. As the fleet pressed on, some crew members began to lose their grip on sanity. The nightmares weren't just dreams. They were memories of lives they couldn't remember. Shadows in the corners of their eyes, whispers on the edge of hearing. One engineer swore he saw a figure staring at him from the bridge window, but when he turned, there was nothing. The captain brushed it off. "Space psychosis," he muttered, hiding his own growing unease. Reports came back of strange signals, distorted, maddening patterns that defied human logic. Signals that didn't seem to be words, but instead, noises that clawed at their minds like broken records, playing fragments of long-forgotten terrors. A cryptographer aboard theorized they weren't just listening to alien communication. They were listening to something older, something lost. Some tried to block out the noise, stuffing their ears with headphones, but the sounds didn't fade. They crept into their thoughts, whispering through the dark like ghosts. Despite all their efforts, the fleet was unable to track the captors. They had followed the coordinates, but now the void had shifted, distorting reality itself. They were no longer chasing a trail. They were chasing shadows. Each passing day became a cycle of endless searching, of dead ends and haunting silence. One scout team ventured too close to an old mining colony. They reported strange sightings, a figure standing atop the ruins, watching. When they approached, it vanished. When they returned to the fleet, they claimed they had found the bodies of the missing children. Only, there were no bodies, just fragments, tattered clothes, faded toys, and remnants of innocence lost. The scout leader, a hardened veteran, broke down, mumbling about whispers that spoke in their minds. "They're not dead," he said, "but they're not alive either." By now, the fleet was barely a shadow of its former strength. Morale was at an all-time low. Fear had replaced hope. The crew began to wonder if they had ever been chasing the children at all, or if the aliens had something even more sinister in store. The fleet pressed on, each member knowing that whatever they found would haunt them for the rest of their lives, or end them entirely. The signal was deliberate, a taunt from the captors. The humans understood it as a challenge, but also as a warning. These beings, whoever they were toying with them. They had taken the children, yes, but now they wanted to make their presence known. The question was, why? What did they gain from capturing human children? What could they want with the most vulnerable? Panic coursed through the fleet. The crew debated, retreat or press on. The answer came swiftly from those still clinging to hope, desperate to reclaim what had been stolen. The aliens had set a trap, and humanity had to walk straight into it if they wanted any chance of survival. Reports came in from different sectors of the fleet. Disturbances in space, phenomena that couldn't be explained. Lights flickered, gravity shifts occurred without warning, and strange distortions rippled across space itself. The alien species, it seemed, had control over something far beyond human comprehension. Perhaps even time, or space itself. One thing became clear. The aliens were no longer hiding. They had made their presence known, and now they were waiting. The message wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration of dominance. It wasn't long before strange phenomena began to take shape. Ships reported strange visions, fragments of reality bending and twisting in ways that defied all logic. The crew watched helplessly as entire systems flickered in and out of existence, as though they had been erased from the stars. The dark void that had always existed beyond the reach of human eyes now seemed alive, pulsating with an unsettling energy. "What is happening?" one engineer asked, his voice trembling. "Are we being erased?" Another answered, "No. We're being redefined." The crew could feel it, an oppressive force building in the darkness, one that wasn't merely watching, but reshaping reality itself. Ships would pass through anomalies, only to find themselves in alternate versions of the same universe, where planets floated where they shouldn't, and entire star systems were replaced with voids of nothingness. Entire sectors of the fleet vanished without a trace, leaving only echoes of their signals in the void. "Are they testing us?" one scientist asked, her voice shaky. "Trying to figure out how far they can push us before we break?" Another replied, "They're not testing us. They're showing us who's in charge." The captain, worn and hollow-eyed, had a darker conclusion. "They've already decided. They've shown us what they can do. Now they're making us walk into their trap, piece by piece." Every step forward felt like a step into oblivion. The crew began to hear whispers in their heads, soft voices calling from the depths of their own minds. They weren't hallucinations. There was something real about them, something that touched the very core of their sanity. No one dared to speak of what they had heard, afraid of what might be listening. One officer, unable to withstand the pressure any longer, cracked. He screamed at the top of his lungs, thrashing against the walls of the ship. "They're here! They're in my mind!" His cries echoed through the ship, a testament to how quickly the grip of fear was tightening. Even in the face of this growing madness, the fleet pressed on. Some believed that they could still find the missing children, still reclaim what had been taken. Others weren't so sure. The captors had shown no sign of mercy, no sign of weakness. If they were to be hunted, it would be with no quarter given. The signal continued to play in their minds, looping with a rhythmic, unsettling cadence. "We have what you seek. Come and find them, if you dare." One of the more pragmatic crew members stared at the repeating message, his brow furrowed. "Come and find them," he muttered, half to himself. "Or maybe they want us to come and join them." The thought was more chilling than any of them could stomach. The aliens had taken the children, but now they were stripping humanity of its very essence. What remained of the crew could feel it. Their sense of self, of purpose, was dissolving in the face of something ancient, something far beyond their understanding. The void wasn't empty. It wasn't quiet. It was alive. Alive in ways that humans had never dared imagine. The captors were no longer lurking in the shadows. They were in the very fabric of space itself, bending it to their will, erasing and reshaping whatever they saw fit. Humanity wasn't facing an unknown enemy anymore. They were facing the cosmos itself. And the warning couldn't have been clearer. The aliens had already shown what they could do. Now they were watching, waiting, and daring humanity to confront them in their own domain. The question wasn't whether they could survive. It was whether they could endure the truth of what they had become. The fleet pushed further, into the heart of the unknown. The human captains braced themselves for the worst, but even their courage began to falter as they encountered the first evidence of the alien species. The encounters were strange, surreal. Shadows in the distance, flickering lights that shifted between forms, and strange echoes that seemed to ripple across their minds like a bad dream they couldn't wake from. No one knew exactly what they were dealing with. The aliens were neither fully visible nor fully absent. They existed in some other realm, one that humans had never been a part of, like a cosmic party they weren't invited to. "What kind of alien show is this?" one crew member muttered, staring at a flickering light that danced on the edge of his vision. "I didn't sign up for an intergalactic rave." The light shifted again, closer this time, as if to mock his joke. Another officer sighed. "It's not a rave. It's more like a cosmic horror film we can't escape from." What became clear was their intent. They were no longer seeking to hide. They wanted the humans to see them. They wanted them to know the inevitable consequence of their intrusion into this ancient darkness. The message was simple: stay away, or be erased. And they weren't just speaking to the fleet. They were speaking to all of humanity. Then came the visions. Memories, human memories, twisted and distorted, projected into the minds of the crew. Dreams of long-dead civilizations played out in their heads, distorted beyond recognition. The aliens weren't just broadcasting these images, they were manipulating the very fabric of memory. The past they showed wasn't their past. It was humanity's past, played out as cautionary tales. "I'm seeing things I never experienced," a shaken pilot admitted, holding his head as if trying to claw his way out of his own mind. "I remember things I wasn't even there for." The aliens showed them scenes of lost civilizations, of worlds long forgotten, consumed by their unseen grip. There was no grand explanation, no words exchanged, just images of cities crumbling, stars snuffed out, people screaming into voids of silence. The message was clear. The same fate awaited humanity. The children had been taken as a warning, not simply to reclaim them, but to understand the cost of their existence. Another crew member shivered, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're not just hunting children. They're hunting us." Those who had once believed in rescue now doubted everything. The captors weren't just taking the children. They were dismantling everything humanity had built. The very fabric of who they were was unraveling. The fleet was falling apart, the crew losing their will to fight as the terror became all-consuming. "Why are they showing us this?" someone asked, his voice cracking under the weight of despair. "What's the point of reminding us we're doomed?" Another answered, his tone laced with bitterness. "Because they want us to give up. They want us to accept the fact that we've already lost." Their thoughts turned darker, spiraling into paranoia. The captors were no longer just observing. They were molding them, reshaping reality into something even they couldn't fully grasp. The crew began to question their very sanity. Were they seeing things as they were, or as the aliens wanted them to see? "I don't know what's real anymore," one officer whispered, staring at his hands as if they didn't belong to him. "Maybe they've already taken everything we are." The visions continued, blurring the line between memory and nightmare. The past was no longer the past. It had become a cruel reminder of the future awaiting humanity. "I thought we came to save them," another officer muttered. "Now I'm not sure we're even saving ourselves." The fleet drifted further into the heart of the unknown, the crew hollowed out by fear and uncertainty. The warning had become all too clear. They weren't dealing with just some isolated threat. This was something ancient, something beyond their comprehension. And as the aliens let them see their past, they made sure humanity knew this was a future they couldn't escape. It was during these visions that one captain stumbled upon something horrifying, something humanity had never anticipated. The children, the ones who had been taken, weren't just casualties in some alien raid. They were something far more significant. It wasn't just about capturing humans. It wasn't about domination, conquest, or even revenge. The captors, these ancient beings, were after something far older, far more insidious. The children weren't just random victims. They were the key to unraveling a reality the aliens had long sought to control. And humanity? Well, humanity had stumbled into a mess far beyond its understanding. Their expansion into space, their quest for knowledge, had disrupted some ancient balance they had no business disturbing. One of the crew members, a scientist who had always doubted their mission's worth, connected the dots. "They're not after power," he muttered, his voice trembling. "They're after stability, or rather, restoring it." It became increasingly clear these weren't just alien invaders. No, they were remnants of something far older, something more primordial than any civilization humans had ever encountered. These beings weren't just creatures of flesh and bone. They were forces of existence, remnants of an ancient order that had reigned long before humanity, or any known civilization, had even come into existence. Cosmic landlords, someone quipped bitterly. We walked into their living room, started rearranging the furniture, and now they're here to kick us out. Despair sank in deeper than ever. It wasn't just a fight against an alien race anymore. It was a battle against a force of nature, something far more powerful than humanity could ever hope to resist. The captors weren't some overgrown space bullies. They were ancient gods of forgotten realms, now lashing out at anything that dared disturb their domain. The children weren't stolen, a voice said, half crazed from lack of sleep and constant terror. They were taken to restore what we broke. The captain who had first uncovered this horrifying truth leaned heavily on the console, his hands shaking. We weren't invited to this part of the universe, he murmured. We were trespassers, and now they're reminding us of that. The realization was paralyzing. Humanity was no longer the invaders. They had crossed some line, awakened forces that had slumbered in the void for eons. They weren't here to subjugate. They were here to protect something they couldn't even begin to comprehend. What could we even offer to these ancient forces? The same scientist asked, his voice hollow. We're like ants, trying to negotiate with giants. The visions of lost civilizations replayed in the minds of the crew. These weren't distant histories. They were cautionary tales. Entire worlds had vanished, not through war or catastrophe, but through the encroachment of these cosmic entities. The captors weren't conquerors. They were stewards of the universe's ancient equilibrium. Maybe they're not our enemies, one officer murmured, staring at the stars as if they could see through the veil of the unknown. Maybe we're the threat to them. The crew began to piece together fragments of what they had seen, the echoes of existence beyond human comprehension. They weren't simply dealing with a species or even a collective intelligence. They were confronting something far more vast, something that transcended time and space. And now, another officer whispered, we're part of their history. Fear tightened its grip. The captors weren't something that could be fought off. They weren't conquerable in the traditional sense. They were forces, forces that had existed before and would continue long after humanity faded into the void. And so, the realization settled over the fleet like a shroud. Humanity wasn't just facing an alien species, it was facing the collapse of everything they thought they knew. They weren't invaders. They were intruders in a universe far larger, far more ancient, and far more indifferent to their existence. The children weren't just taken. They were sacrificed. Not as victims, but as warnings. Warnings of what happens when you disturb the balance of the cosmos. The fleet pushed on, but the hope that had once guided them was now gone, replaced by the weight of inevitability. What they faced wasn't just an unknown. They faced a truth they would never be able to escape. Desperation had taken hold of the fleet. They knew what was coming, what they had already seen in the distorted visions. The captors weren't just hunting them. They were hunting their very existence. The fleet had no illusions of reclaiming the children. The captors had made it brutally clear. They weren't interested in dialogue or negotiation. They didn't want peace or surrender. They had arrived with one purpose: extinguish humanity's presence from the stars. There was no hope left, no rescue, no last-minute miracle. The captors had erased any chance of that, the moment they took the children. What humanity faced now wasn't just an alien species. It was a cosmic force that didn't just threaten extinction, it demanded it. The captains decided that if they were to go, they would go with purpose. This wasn't about survival, at least not their own. This was about survival of the species, even if that meant ensuring humanity's existence ended on its terms. They would confront the entity, the captors, face to face. It was a final, desperate maneuver, one last shot at defiance before they accepted the inevitable. The fleet pushed forward, drawn toward the heart of the anomaly, where the captors lingered like dark gods waiting for their prey. When they arrived, what they saw wasn't something that could be described in human terms. It wasn't simply an alien species, they were something far beyond comprehension. The captors were more than beings, they were forces of nature, remnants of some ancient cosmic order that predated everything humanity had ever built or dreamed of. It wasn't a battle they could fight. No ships, no weapons could harm these beings. They weren't constrained by the laws of physics, of time, or even of life itself. They were beyond all of that, like shadows made real, whispers in the void that had somehow grown into monstrous forms. The fleet stood before them, and there was no glory to be had, no heroics, no triumph. Just a slow, inevitable realization humanity had awakened something far older, far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The captors didn't seek to conquer, they sought to erase, to reclaim the balance they had lost. And they had already won. The final transmission from the fleet crackled across space, faint, static-ridden, but clear enough to be understood. A warning to any who might follow, to any who dared step into the void beyond human comprehension. Humanity had stepped too far into the unknown. They had gone too far, and in doing so, had signed their own death warrant. The children, lost to the void, were gone forever, not as casualties, but as sacrifices. If anyone thought humanity could rebuild, if they thought there was hope, the fleet's final message was simple: don't follow. Don't try. There was nothing left to reclaim, nothing left to save. The captors had claimed victory, and humanity was no longer relevant to the vast, uncaring universe. And as the void swallowed the last remnants of the fleet, the silence stretched out across the stars. An ominous reminder that some forces weren't meant to be confronted, weren't meant to be survived. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Sci-Fi Horizon Stories for more thrilling tales of science fiction and adventure.